Okay, so today we're going to work on our Topic 10 study guide. So make sure you write all these notes down, print out the study guide if you can. If you can't, handwrite, or you can use Cami. Okay, so first question, which functions do not have an axis of symmetry? And select all that apply. So if it says select all that apply, we're definitely going to have more than one answer. So you want to think about the shapes of these functions. So this is a square root function. So remember, that's shaped like this. Oops. It's kind of like half of a parabola and it's like sideways. So that does not have an axis of symmetry because you can't cut this down the middle. It's not symmetrical on both sides. So this one does not. This is an absolute value function, which is a V shape that does have an axis of symmetry. This one is the cube root function. That's like a S shape, kind of like that. That does not have an axis of symmetry because if you draw a line down the middle, if you reflect this over, it's not going to land on top of this. And then this one is a parabola, which does have an axis of symmetry. So we selected the ones that did not. Okay, A and C. Next one, which function is graphed? Okay, so we have to figure out the shift of this cube root function. So the center point for this is right here. Okay, so that's like that center point. So this is right 1 unit and up 4 units. So right 1 unit, the only one that shows right 1 unit is this one, okay, because it's -1, it's the opposite of what you think. And then up 4 units plus 4, so it's this one. For the function f of x equals the square root of x minus 1, the average rate of change to the nearest hundredth over the interval 3 to 6 is, so we have to figure out the average rate of change, which is the slope. So what we're going to do is we're going to plug in these values into our function. So starting off with f of 3. Okay, so f of 3 equals the square root of 3 minus 1. So f of 3 equals the square root of 2. F of 3 equals about 1.41 if you take the square root of 2. So that's the point 3, 1.41. Next, f of 6 equals the square root of 6 minus 1. So f of 6 equals the square root of 5. So f of 6 equals about 2.24. And that is the point 6, 2.24. Now we got to find the slope. Remember, slope is m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So we're going to do y minus y. So m equals 2.24 minus 1.41 over 6 minus 3. And that's about 0.83 over 3, which is about 0.28. So the slope is 0.28, about. Okay, next. Complete the following to describe the end behavior of the exponential function. Okay, so end behavior. We're going to look at this function here. And what we're going to do is, oh, that was so blurry. Okay, what we're going to do is we're first going to look, as we're approaching infinity, what is happening to our y values. So as we're heading this way on the graph, what is happening to your y values? Your y values are approaching 2. So they're never going to pass 2. Okay, that's what's happening to your y values. Now, as x is approaching negative infinity, so if I'm going this way on the graph, my y values are going up, 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 and they're just going to keep going. So they're going to positive infinity. Okay, next, if f of x equals 3x minus 1 and g of x equals 4x minus 3, what is f times g? Okay, so we need to find f times g of x. So we just have to multiply these. So 3x minus 4 times 4x minus 3, putting those in parentheses. Now we're going to FOIL them. So 3x times 4x is 12x squared. 3x times negative 3 is negative 9x. Negative 4x times 4x is negative 16x. And then negative 4 times negative 3 is positive 12. Now we can combine these like terms. So f times g of x equals 12x squared. Negative 9x minus 16x is negative 25x plus 12. Okay, next. The graph of g is a translation 3 units up and 7 units right of the graph f of x equals the square root of x. What is the equation for g? So that one's pretty simple. If we have 7 units right, underneath our radical, we're going to have x minus 7 because it's like the opposite of what you think it would be. And then if it's up 3, that's plus 3 on the outside there. Next, the graph of g is a translation 4 units down of the graph of f of x equals x squared plus 1. Okay, so for this, 4 units down, if we're going 4 units down, what's going to happen is it's going to be g of x equals x squared. 1 minus 4 is negative 3. So what this is a parabola moved down 3 units. So if you think about like graphing this, it's a parabola like this. So if you think about the range, all your possible y values are going to be negative 3 is your smallest one, and then they're all greater than that, all of your y values. So it would be g of x is greater than or equal to negative 3. Next, this is an absolute value function. So it's a V shape, it's moved left 3 units and then down 2. So left 3, down 2 is right here. And then for absolute value, we go up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1. Same thing on the other side. And then you just connect the dots. There we go. Okay, number 9. The graph of f of x equals 2x minus 2 is shown. Graph the inverse of f. So for this, there's a couple different ways we could do this. One way you could do it is you could just look at all these points on here, like 2, 2, and like, let's see, 3, 4, and you could just flip all the coordinate points. The way I'm going to do it, though, is I'm actually going to, first we have our function y equals 2x minus 2. Okay, y equals 2x minus 2. And then remember, when you're taking the inverse, you want to flip the x and the y. So I'm going to put an x where y is, and I'm going to put a y where x is. So now it became x equals 2y minus 2. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to solve for y, so I have to get y by itself. So to get y by itself, I'm going to add 2 to both sides. X plus 2 equals 2y. And then last but not least, we're going to divide by 2 to get y by itself. Divide by 2, divide by 2. So now we have the function, the inverse, y inverse equals, this is 1/2 x, right? This is like a 1 here. And then 2 over 2 is 1. So 1/2 x plus 1. So now all we have to do is we just have to graph that, and we can graph it on this coordinate plane. So we're going to go up 1 unit because that's our y-intercept. And then up 1 over 2 is our slope. So up 1 over 2, up 1 over 2, down 1 over 2. And then just connect the dots, and that's your inverse function. Okay? Next, number 10. All right, find the inverse of the function f of x equals 3x minus 2. Okay, so for this one, we're starting with the function y equals 3x minus 2. Then we need to flip x and y, so x goes here, and then y goes here. So now we have x equals 3y minus 2. The next step is to solve for y, so we're going to add 2 to both sides. So now we have x plus 2 equals 3y. And then the last step is to divide everything by 3. So now we have y inverse equals 1/3 x plus 2/3. And then since it gave it to us in f of x function notation, I'm going to put this form instead. F of negative 1x, 1/3 x plus 2/3. I won't mark it wrong if you keep it like this, but you should technically put it back in the function notation. Okay, create a table of values for the inverse function. This is super simple. Inverse function means you just flip all of your x and y values. So instead of 2, -10, it's going to be -10, 2. Instead of 5, -5, it's going to be -5, 5, 0, 8, and then 5, 11. And there's an extra box here, I'm not quite sure why. Okay, next, find f minus g for the pair of functions. Okay, so for this, what we're going to do, move this up, is we're going to take our function f, so f minus g of x equals 6x squared plus 4x minus 1, I'm going to put that in parentheses, minus 3x minus 3. It's really important that you put this in parentheses so you know that the negative distributes to both of these things. Okay, so now it becomes 6x squared plus 4x minus 1 minus 3x plus 3. Now we're going to combine like terms. It's f minus g of x for the entire thing, by the way. I'm just being lazy. Okay, so we have 6x squared. We have positive 4x and negative 3x, which makes positive 1x, so plus x. And then negative 1 plus 3 is positive 2. So f minus g of x is 6x squared plus x plus 2. Now we're going to do g minus f. So instead of doing f minus g, we're going to do g minus f. So the one you want to list first is this one. So g minus f of x equals 3x minus 3 minus 6x squared plus 4x minus 1. So now this negative distributes to all of these things, all of these terms. So now we have 3x minus 3 minus 6x squared minus 4x plus 1. G minus f of x equals, we're going to list this first, negative 6x squared. Then we have 3x minus 4x, that's negative x, and we have negative 3 plus 1, which is negative 2. Okay, moving on. It says find f plus g for the pair of functions. Okay, f plus g. So, what we're going to do here is we're going to add these functions now. So f plus g of x equals 9x cubed minus 7x squared plus 2x minus 1 minus 3x plus 4. You just write them next to each other. So 9x cubed, that doesn't combine with anything, so f plus g of x equals 9x cubed. Minus 7x squared, that doesn't combine with anything. 2x minus 3x is negative x, and then negative 1 plus 4 is positive 3. Next, this is talking about compressions and stretches. So we have describe the transformation from f of x equals x squared to g of x equals 0.6x squared. So if you look at this, the difference between these two functions is this parabola is getting multiplied by 0.06 in the front, so it's getting multiplied through the entire thing. So if it's getting multiplied through the entire thing, if you have a number in front like that, it's going to be vertical, it's not going to be horizontal. And then if it's less than 1, it's going to be a compression. So it's a vertical compression. Next, describe the transformation from f of x equals x squared to g of x equals 4x squared. So once again, this 4 is getting multiplied in the front. It's affecting the entire function. So that means it's going to be vertical. And then since this number is greater than 1, 4 is greater than 1, it's going to be a stretch. So vertical stretch. Okay, next, true or false? The graph of f of x equals x squared plus 4 has a maximum value of 4. So this is a parabola, and this has moved up 4 units. Sometimes it's helpful to just kind of quickly sketch it out. 1, 2, 3, 4, up 4 units, so it's a parabola like this. And it's saying it has a maximum value of 4. It doesn't have a maximum value, it has a minimum value. This is the lowest value. So we're going to say that it's false, and we're going to cross out maximum and put minimum. Okay, I'm going to fold this paper so we can move up a little bit. All right, next, true or false? Correct the statement if false. The range of f of x equals x cubed, cube root of x, is all real numbers. Okay, so the cube root of x, that looks like this. Okay, the range is all real numbers, so that means it's going from positive infinity to negative infinity, which is true. Your y values are going to keep going up and up and up, and they will keep going down, down, down. So that is true. All right, last page. Okay, make a table of values to graph f of x equals the cube root of x minus 3. So I gave you the table of values. You're going to plug in these numbers. So starting off with plugging in negative 8. The cubed root of negative 8 is negative 2, because negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 is negative 8. So negative 2 and then minus 3. Negative 2 minus 3 is negative 5. Next, plugging in negative 1. The cubed root of negative 1 is negative 1. Minus 3 is negative 4. Cubed root of 0 is 0. Minus 3 is negative 3. Cubed root of 1 is 1. Minus 3 is negative 2. Cubed root of 8 is 2. Minus 3 is negative 1. So now we're going to plot all of these values. So we have negative 8, negative 5, which is all the way over here, kind of goes off our graph. So this is negative 7, this is negative 8, right about there. So negative 8, negative 5 is down here. Then we have negative 1, negative 4, which is right here. 0, negative 3, 1, negative 2, and 8, which is over here, negative 1. So if you look at this, it's got that S shape, and it's moved down 3 units. That center point is moved down 3 units, which makes sense. All right, last but not least, what is the slope of the graph of the inverse function of f of x equals 1/2 x plus 2? You can really just look at this and know what the slope is of the inverse function, so because you just take, you just flip this fraction, so the slope is 2, because it would be 2 over 1. I'm going to show you the long way of doing it. So basically what you could do is you could find the inverse function. So right now we have y equals 1/2 x plus 4. we're going to flip our x and our y. So now we have x equals 1/2 y plus 4. We're going to solve for y, so we're going to subtract 4. So we have x minus 4 equals 1/2 y. Now to get rid of this fraction, we multiply by the reciprocal, which is multiplying by 2. So multiply by 2, then multiply this side by 2. Make sure you multiply the whole thing by 2. So now we have y inverse equals, distribute, 2x minus 8. But you're not done because it asks you specifically what is the slope. So the slope is 2. The slope is 2. Okay, and that is it. Happy studying.